Hey guys, here we are again, huh? Today we're going to go over a trap that I'm sure all of you have heard of, maybe even tried out a few times. Today we're going to cover the figure 4 deadfall. Now, you read a lot about the figure 4, about its effectiveness. There's varying accounts both ways. I personally have not used it in a practical application and as such to try to catch an animal. But in my experience with it, I've made quite a few figure 4 triggers. Seems to be a pretty sensitive trap. Fairly easy to make. It does take a little bit of time because there's some carving, but that's what I like about it. When you're just getting out started in this stuff, you know, I think figure 4 deadfall is a good one to learn because it teaches you a couple different notches. It teaches you patience, for one thing, because the first few times you do some of these traps, guys, they may not work out very well. That's just how it is. That's why we're doing this. This is all practice. We're trying to build our experience level. So anyhow, I'm going to look around for some materials for components, and I'll be back with you shortly. For the figure 4 deadfall, we need 3 components. We need a post stick or upright stick. We're going to need an angled stick, which makes up our 4, basically, the top part of our 4. Then we're going to need a bait stick. Now when you look at that, you can guess why they call it the figure 4 deadfall. What I'm going to do first here is I'm going to carve the top of our post stick. And then for that, all I'm going to do is carve it into a flat point or a chisel point, however you want to call it. Chest lever grip works really good for this. You can hold the edge of your knife away from your body, have quite a bit of power, and still have control over what you're doing. Just take your time, no need to get in a hurry, and that's what you want right there. Basically just a flat point. So then for our angled stick on the top, I see a lot of guys make a 7 notch right here, which works great. But what I'm going to do today is just cut a small V notch. Clean it up a little bit. Basically, all that's going to do is rest right there. Now, actually, I'm going to make another one, move it down a little bit, because I like to have the end of my angled stick here be a little bit past this inside edge of my post stick. So just one of them adjustments we got to make. Okay, so that's better. And what that's going to allow is for my deadfall to sit on this part. That way my components don't have to be inside the trap. If I was to put my deadfall right on top of this post, my post stick is going to be inside the trap. With it out here like this, it allows my post stick to be on the outside edge of that deadfall. Okay, so now we got our V-notch cut in. I'm just going to flat this off at an angle. It doesn't have to be a 45. You just want to make sure your V-notch is on the exact bottom of where you're carving. Always take your time. Make sure you're carving in the right spot. It's easy to get these mixed up whenever you're carving these traps. Very easy to get mixed up. Okay, so what I've done there is I've just basically ramped this off, and then on the bottom side where the stick rounds, I just kind of flattened that off, gave it a flat surface. So then I'm going to take my post stick and my angled stick, and I'm going to mate them together here and make sure everything's looking good. Make sure everything's looking straight. Looks like my flat here is looking good. Everything looks like it seats good. So now I'm going to start on my bait stick. For your bait stick, it doesn't have to be near the diameter that your other pieces do. All I'm going to do is cut a 7-notch there. So I'm just going to cut in with my knife a little bit. And I'm going to start removing that material from the other direction, just using the thumb push. A little push cut. And once again, I'm going to try to make sure everything's straight, so everything mates up right whenever I get to my next step. The more time you take making your components and making sure everything's right the first time, the less adjustment you have to do. Now with these traps, there always is adjustment, that being said, but if you take your time, test everything out as you go, normally you can save yourself a little bit of a headache. So that's going to grab that there. My angled stick's going to grab that notch. Okay, so now we're getting there. We have our notch cut in our bait stick. That's going to lock in there. So now all we have to do is shave some off of our post stick here and then create a notch in our bait stick, so that way our deadfall is going to push down here and it's going to want to pull this bait stick this way. We cut that notch to keep that from going any further. So that's going to be our next order of business. Okay, so once we get to that point, we're going to want to shave some off of the face of our post stick. And what you want to do is you want to take your flat area, you can see your point there, take your flat, and you want it to be the face. You're going to want your flat basically to follow this flat. So we're just going to shave some off here. Just off of that face. Taking a little bit at a time just to make sure we don't overdo it. Very easy to overdo. Oh, we see we got some shaved off there. Now I'm going to come off to the side and do the same thing. Picked a pretty knotty little piece of wood here. Okay, so what I've done here is I've shaved some off of the face and then off of the side. Now you may be able to see I've left this little strip of bark right here, left this rounded just a little bit. I left that like that so that could leave me a little bit of adjustment if I need it. Whenever I get my trigger put back together, if it works fine right here, then great. If not, if it's too hairy, then I can just start shaving a little bit at a time off here and just watch this little piece of bark disappear. That's kind of like a reference mark. So once we've done that, I'm going to try to do this in reverse so it's easier for you to see. We've got all of our notches cut but one basically. So we're going to get our bait stick on here, get it about to the right angle we're going to want. I like mine about right there. And then I'm going to take my fingernail and mark into this piece of wood right there where it's going to go, where it's going to hook onto our post stick. And right there where my finger is, I'm going to carefully make a mark with my knife. I was saying earlier, you have your point on this end, you have your notch on this end. Now you are going to want the stop for your notch to be on this side of your point. So that means basically you're going to take your point away from you. You're going to have your mark cut starting off your notch, and then you're going to push towards that. You don't have to go too deep with it. Just go kind of shallow with it at first. see where it ends up. Shave a little bit more off. Okay, so we got all of our notches cut and everything. Now let's see how she fits together. There we have it. Now you can see our deadfall is going to sit on top right here, and I will flatten this round part off a little bit to give our deadfall a place to rest. But it should be sensitive enough. Animal comes through, touches the trigger, lets it go. So, okay, to set the figure 4 deadfall, just make sure your post stick's positioned right. You're going to want the spot that you flattened off facing towards your trap. We go to our V notch on top of our V flat here. Then we see our 7 notch here that goes onto our post stick, and our 7 notch that goes into our flat here. We just put everything in where it's supposed to go, hold on to it with our fingers. Then the friction, the weight, the gravity will hold that all together. So basically our deadfall is going to be right here on top where my thumb is. So I'm going to take and try to hold on to that. Move my piece of slate out a little bit more. Got a piece of slate here to put my post stick on. It's all adjustment. And then you see my bait stick came on out of there. Okay, there we go. Now you can see I got a pretty good angle here. Now whenever this trap's triggered, all my components should go flying out clear of the trap. Okay, so once again, you could do your funneling. Coming down this trail here, you could put your sticks in to push the animal into your trap. You could put a fence up here to make it harder for him to back out of it. We talked about that in the first video. Anyhow, the animal is going to come up the trail here. He's going to grab our bait, and he's going to get smashed. Now, as you've seen there, all the components got thrown free of the trap. That's one good thing about the figure 4 and the Paiute deadfall in the barber chair that we went over, is the fact that these trap triggers eject themselves from the trap bed. That way you don't have to worry about these pieces getting trapped under here with your squirrel.